Protein powder. What is this weird substance that looks like flour and every bodybuilder seems to use to build muscle? To keep this video simple, I will only talk about dairy protein powder because it's by far the most sold one and it's the kind that I personally use a lot for recipes. See, the entire process starts with regular cow milk. Cheese manufacturers bring this up to a temperature of around 90 degrees Celsius or 200 F and mix this now with a substance called rennet to separate the proteins in the milk. I will do this with vinegar. It's not as good in separating, but it's good enough for the purpose of this video. I will add in 40 milliliters of vinegar in 1 liter of milk, remove it from the heat and let this do its work for 20 minutes. And as you can see, this now has separated these curdles from the yellow liquid. I will pass it through a cheesecloth, and this white mixture is most of the casein, what now is mostly used for making all sorts of cheeses. In this case I just made my homemade ricotta cheese. Pretty simple, right? This down here, however, is called liquid whey, and some of you now might think, wait a minute, I heard that word, and yes, you are right. This liquid whey now gets dehydrated and filtered, where fat and lactose is removed, and after that we are left with neutral whey protein powder. The process is a bit more complicated of course, but this is essentially how whey protein powder is made in its natural form. Now, what all manufacturers do next is to add substances to change the flavor and to make it more sweet. For example, this is vanilla flavored whey protein. On top of the whey there is added flavor like vanilla extract, an emulsifier extracted from the sunflower, a thickening agent called carrageenan, which is extracted from seaweed, salt, a sweetener like sucralose that is in Splenda, and sunflower oil. As you can see, there is nothing too crazy in here once you understand what these different additives actually are. Most stuff comes from plants. You see me also talking about casein protein powder in my videos. That is the little sister of whey and it's basically the same but made out of the curdles that we separated earlier. That's the reason why casein protein has this thick consistency. It's not super easy to find, it's not that popular as whey. What are the pros and cons when using protein powder? The most obvious pro is that it's actually a relatively cheap protein source. The brand that I'm currently using costs 27 euro per kilogram, from which 800 grams is protein. So it's around 3 cents per gram of protein. For comparison, chicken breasts can cost up to 10 cents per gram of protein, depending where you live. Also, whey is a complete protein, which means that it contains all essential amino acids and makes it a high quality protein source. The next pro is that it is super convenient. You can just mix it into shakes, into your oatmeal. Basically, most sweet recipes that uses dairy can be mixed with protein powder because, as you just learned, it's basically the same. A con is that some manufacturers add weird ingredients into their powder that could upset your stomach and also taste absolutely horrible. Also, there are so many different kinds of powders that it can be very overwhelming to decide which one to buy. Personally, I would start with a more basic flavor like vanilla. That is the most versatile. Should you buy whey or casein? Well, they both have pros and cons in their own way, especially when it comes down to baking, so I honestly would buy a blend. There are manufacturers that combine both and I personally think that's the safest bet for starters. A vanilla whey casein blend. What's important is, some manufacturers tend to add tons of sugar, so check the nutrition label and try to buy a protein powder that has at least 75% of protein of 100 grams of powder, which is around 25 grams of protein for a 120 calorie scoop. My personal favorite way to use protein powder is by adding some into baking dishes like banana bread. As a general rule of thumb, you can add around 1/3 of the flour as protein powder, as this will not change the consistency too much and will keep the overall texture and flavor of what you're baking. Adding more than that can end up ruining the recipe, so please just stay below that to be safe. So, as you can see, protein powder is not as unnatural as a lot of people think. It's basically concentrated milk in powder form with added flavor. Now, I'm not saying that you need a protein powder. In fact, you can and also should try to get all of your protein from your diet, but I believe that it's an easy and cheap way to get additional protein, and to me it's enough to buy it. Now you can make an informed decision and see if you buy one. A massive thanks to my patrons that help making these videos. A link on how to support the channel is in the description box. Here's a recipe you can use to apply what you just learned, a protein banana bread, so see you there.